Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and guys, I have a really exciting video for you guys today because we finally have it in our hands, the tactile version of the Akko Rosewood. Now, the Rosewood was a really great switch. A lot of people loved it, and there were people that also didn't like it. Now, because it was a little bit more muted, it did have a scratchy feel to it, which I understand not everyone's gonna love, and I get it too. The best way to actually fix that for the Rosewood is actually to really oil the springs a lot, and by doing that, it actually will reduce this scratchiness quite a bit. Now, one thing I'm super excited about is trying out these ones because Akko literally put it on their post that this is going to be the tactile version of the Rosewood. So that means this is going to be an incredibly creamy tactile switch, which I haven't actually gotten a chance to try a really creamy tactile switch ever. And I have tried a decent amount, but of course not all of them. So let's go right into it, do sound tests, see what it's like, and of course compare it to the Rosewood. So make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get right into it.
So starting off with the unboxing of the Akko Bittersweet. Thank you again, Akko, for sending me this out because I really did want to try it, as this is supposed to be the tactile version of the Rosewood switches, which were one of the creamiest switches I've ever tried. Now, opening it up, you can kind of see here that the packaging actually went back to the old packaging. I really did appreciate their newer packaging style that they were doing with like the plastic case that you could actually put other switches in or all the switches in. It would have been nice if they actually kept it. I think that was a really nice touch. It would have been nice to have like more packaging available for those that really have multiple switches, but this is the Bittersweet switch, and it does feel like a light tactile, as you can see here. In terms of the switch itself, it is a tactile switch. It does have very similar features as the Rosewood, but of course we're gonna have to do sound tests comparing this with the Rosewood and all different keyboards.
So we've done the unboxing of it and we've done this sound test. Now, what are my thoughts? This is the Bittersweet Switch in my hands right here. And the unboxing, I kind of do wish they kept that whole new packaging that they went with. I think that packaging was actually a really nice upgrade for Akko switches, especially if you wanted to like store more switches in there. I think really they should have kept it. It would have been nice to have that still as a packaging. Now, my thoughts on the Switch. The tactile feel is light. So you get a very light tactile feel. It's very smooth. The best way I would kind of explain it is if you had a rubber hook and you hooked it onto something, but because it's rubber, it will move, right? And when you pull on it, you get that little tug feel. It's like that, but like even lighter. So like you're looking at like a very thin rubber hook that like you hook onto like a side here or like here, and then you pull on it and it just comes off. That's the type of tactile feel that I'm getting. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's very smooth. Once you do lube it, it actually even makes it smoother in terms of like the tactile feel. So if you are someone who does enjoy a very heavy tactile feel, these switches definitely aren't going to do it for you. I think for myself, sorry, I dropped the switch right there. For myself personally, I like the tactile feel because it feels smooth. If you are typing really, really quickly, it almost feels like a linear with a bump, like a very light bump because of the smoothness of it. In terms of the sound profile though, really do like it. It's like that perfect creamy sound that I loved about the Rosewood in a tactile switch. And one thing also is I think the scratchiness has been reduced quite a bit as well. So compared to the Rosewood, these ones have a little less of that scratchy feel. Of course, if you lube the springs well enough, it will actually reduce it so much and like almost feel like you get no scratchiness at all. Now, I think they did a really great job with it. The sound profile, super nice to hear. And I think this is literally going to be one of the best tactiles that I've tried at all so far. Of course, my preference is going to be a little bit more on the deeper side, muted switches. So that's just me personally, right? We're going to go into the Switch more, open it up, take a look at it, and even try kind of doing a little bit of a swap to see what we can do with the Rosewood, because I know the Rosewood didn't have great backlighting with the red. So let's go right into it.
So let's go right into it and compare between the Bittersweet and the Rosewood. So this is a Bittersweet on the left and the Rosewoods on the right. Now, one of the key things that I'd like to say in terms of why I say these are creamy switches is I personally think creamy switches are ones that are more muted and not ones that are just deep sounding. So deep with like a little bit more of a louder sound and a bit more of a like thump sound is what I treat as thocky, while creamy is a little bit more in terms of like the muted sounded, quieter switch. Now, we took apart the Bittersweet switch and we can kind of see here all the different parts that we get. So we have a spring that looks a little bit on the shorter side. So it's not a long spring compared to say the Rosewood, which do have a longer spring in them. I believe they were like 21 millimeters. And as you can see here with the stem itself, it does have the tactile portion on the back of the stem. And of course, let me give you a closer look to also give you an idea of what the stock lubing looks like. So the stem itself doesn't really come very well lubed. That's what I kind of felt, as well as the springs. And this is the same thing with the Rosewood as well. I think both of them require hand lubing and also oiling up the springs. If you don't really do that, you do kind of get this really scratchy feel. I think specifically it's because of how muted these switches sound that and how the muting happens that you get this feeling from the springs and the switch. So I really highly recommend if you are working with these and you do want to get these, that if you want the same kind of sound profile that I'm getting, you should, one, hand lube it with like Krytox 205G0, and two, oil up the springs because it will really help. Now, measuring the springs for the Bittersweet, you can actually see here that we are going to be getting the 18 millimeters in terms of the length. So these aren't long springs. They are single stage, but they are going to be 18 millimeters in terms of the length. Though my measuring tool isn't like 100% accurate, but I believe this should be the length that we're beginning with these switches. So one thing I have to admit is like these switches in terms of the tactile feel is very, very light. So if you are typing really quickly, it can almost feel like you're typing on a linear switch, and it will feel very different, say, than compared to like switches that are the tactile switches that are a little bit more on the heavier tactile feel with like a strong tactile feel. But again, here's like on the screen with the specifics that you can see. But keep in mind that even though it's a 60 gram tactile feel, it does feel quite a bit lighter, and it is actually going to be definitely a much, much lighter tactile feel. So very, very smooth. And once you lube the switches and typing quickly, it will feel very like linear like. Now, one thing that people were commenting before was wondering like if they could have different types of housing for this, because the Rosewoods actually did have a bit of an issue with this housing where the lighting would change colors to red. And I'm not someone who really uses backlighting, so that doesn't matter to me too much. But if you are looking, and of course if you have the extra money, you could actually get the bittersweets and kind of do a mix up of it. So as you can see here, I'm doing a bit of like a Franken switch, which gives you a linear switch and a into the bittersweet housing. Now, surprisingly enough, even if you add the tactile stem from like the bittersweet into the rosewood housing, it actually still feels linear. So you're not getting any of that tactile feel. It still has a very, very like linear feel, completely smooth without any bumps. I found that quite interesting, but that's how like it'll happen when you switch it over. And then if you choose the rosewood stems into the bittersweet, it still feels linear. So you're not getting a tactile bump from it at all. It will be fully linear. And this is how the switch will pretty much look like. You'll have like a red stem and like the brown housing. So it'll look a little bit weird, I guess, but I mean, once you put the keycaps on, you won't really be able to see it at all. So I'm going to be doing 2 of them with just the stem swap. And then the third one, I'm actually going to be changing the spring as well, because as I was mentioning, the springs do have a difference in terms of the length. So we're looking at like a 21 millimeter length for the rosewood, while the bittersweet is like a 18 millimeter. So we're going to do one of them with the long spring, and just to see like what feels better. Does it have a difference in terms of sound as well? And I'll give you guys kind of like a side-by-side comparison between the switches, so you guys can get an idea between them. Now, I'm gonna have to put them all together, and it just sounds really interesting though that the tactile stem just makes the rosewood housing still feel linear. Really interesting, honestly. And even with the shorter spring, though the shorter spring on the rosewood didn't feel as great, kind of felt a little bit more scratchy, but we're gonna have to really test this out with the bittersweet Franken switch that we just made to see what it's like. Now, let me grab out a few of the switches. Oh, this is also another con of the switch. It's going to be that the keycaps will get stuck on these switches. The stem is actually quite tight with keycaps, and not even just this keycap from KeyTalk, but every single keycap that I've been trying that gets stuck with it. So keep that in mind for yourselves, because Akko switches are a little bit on the smaller side, so they will be a little bit loose in terms of pretty much most PCBs out there. And the keycaps will get stuck on them, which is not amazing. I think that that's like a little bit of a flaw. I know that there was an issue before with like the Creamiest Purple Pro where the stems were a bit too loose, but yeah. Now, one thing I did notice when I did the swaps was that on the shorter springs, it actually sounds a little bit weird. It has a weird jump back sound. So keep that in mind for yourselves. If you're getting the Franken switch, I would highly, highly suggest using the rosewood springs into the bittersweet. Now, this is the stem wobble test, and as you can see here, the rosewoods do have a bit of stem wobble, right? It's mostly on the vertical side, but you still get some on the horizontal side. It's just the vertical upwards, like when you press up, it's gonna have a stronger, like much more stem wobble, while the horizontal is like less, as well as the when you press it downwards. Same thing as with the bittersweets, you are getting that same stem wobble, though it's less than the rosewood, except for when you press upwards. So if you're holding it down a key and you're pressing upwards, you will feel that stem wobble a lot more than say going side to side or pressing down. I think the bittersweets do have a little bit less compared to the rosewoods, but they are both very similar to each other. So you will experience some stem wobble if you are someone who doesn't like stem wobble, especially if you play video games and you're dealing with pressing a button for a long time. This is something to keep in mind for yourselves, because most switches nowadays, I think, are doing much better jobs with reducing that stem wobble. Now, of course, we're going to the backlighting test, and as you guys saw a little bit of the coloring there. So I had the pink light, and I really had to kind of change it up to a brighter light. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this into like a white light, which is really not good. I need to probably change up the board that I'm using for these things. The thing about the Rosewood is that when you use a white light, specifically white, it will make the lighting come out a little bit more red. I noticed that a lot with the Rosewoods, where it did affect the backlighting a lot. The Bittersweets, I actually realized that it doesn't really affect the lighting much. It will a little bit, but not too much at all because of the coloring of the switch, which I really did like. I think they did a great job with this one, where the housing is much better for that lighting, and the lighting will come out a lot better. So as you can see here, we're using like a lighter pink light. You can see how the Rosewood really does make it more red, while the Bittersweet doesn't. It's keeping the light more accurate to what it's supposed to be. Though it will have a small effect on the lighting, it's not as bad as like the Rosewood would. Now, I think if you are looking for a really nice creamy tactile switch, you should definitely take a look at these. I think they did a really great job with this one, especially making it like a good counterpart tactile switch compared to the Rosewoods. I really wanted a like tactile that is creamy, and I know a lot of people were asking in my creamy switch videos that what would I suggest for a creamy tactile. Definitely go check this out. I'll have the links in the description for you guys. I think Akko did a great job on this, and it really shows that they're trying to make something new.
I really do hope that this video helped you guys in terms of seeing what this Akko switch is like, comparing it in many different boards, and also try to get you guys an idea of what to look for in a nice tactile switch, and if you guys should go grab it. I'll have the links in the description for you guys, of course. Go check it out, because I think Akko's done a great job with this tactile. Now, of course, I'll have to catch you guys next time, but please go check out the other videos I got.